Moira Anderson was 11 years old when she disappeared on the 23rd of February 1957 in Coatbridge, Scotland. Alexander Gartshore was a paedophile. He had been the last known person to see Moira Anderson alive in 1957, when he was a bus driver in Coatbridge, Scotland. He had also previously been convicted of sexually abusing another girl around the same age and time. Jimmy Savile is a well-known English paedophile, introduced to the royal family in 1966 by paedophile Lord Mountbatten. He became a friend of Queen Elizabeth II, the Queen Mother, Prince Philip, Prince Charles, Prince Andrew, as well as a lot of other influential people, including prime ministers and politicians. He lived in these key locations throughout his life. Leeds, West Yorkshire. Born and raised in Leeds, he lived in several homes there, including a penthouse in Roundhay. Scarborough, North Yorkshire. He owned a seafront apartment at Wessex House, where he spent a lot of time. London. He had residences in various places, including a flat in central London, during his BBC career. Glencoe, Scotland. He owned a secluded cottage in the Scottish Highlands. Stoke Mandeville Hospital, Buckinghamshire. He had a personal living space within the hospital, where he volunteered. Broadmoor Hospital, Berkshire. He had a bedroom within the high-security psychiatric hospital due to his involvement there. Jimmy Savile was born and raised in Leeds, West Yorkshire, and remained a resident for most of his life. He lived in Salford, Greater Manchester, from the mid-1950s to the mid-1960s, sharing a residence with his paedophile assistant Ray Terrett during part of that time. In 1965, he was known to frequent the Mecca Locarno Ballroom in Leeds, where he worked as a manager in the late 1950s and early 1960s. Given the proximity of Salford to Leeds, it's plausible that he commuted between the two cities while managing the ballroom. Around the same time frame, 1965, Fred West, Alexander Gartshore, and James Gallogly were involved in a paedophile ring in Glasgow, Scotland. Gallogly lived on the same street in Coatbridge, Fred West, and his Scottish first wife Rena. Gallogly and Gartshore were paedophile child killers. As previously mentioned, he had been the last known person to see Moira Anderson alive in 1957, when he was a bus driver in Coatbridge, Scotland. In 1999, Gallogly confessed from his prison cell to being involved in the murder of 11-year-old Moira Anderson in 1957. According to his confession, he, along with Alexander Gartshore and the third man, were involved in the abuse and killing of Moira. On the 11th of December 1965, Fred West left Scotland and returned to Herefordshire. Gartshore also moved to Leeds around the same time. At the time of writing, the location in Leeds, where Gartshore moved to in the 1960s, is unknown. But where he lived in the 1990s is. Quoting from a passage in Sandra Brown's book, Where There Is Evil, it was fairly easy to locate the 𝗏𝗏𝗱𝗏𝗏 suburb of the city. Its tower blocks visible from a distance. The one my father lived in was like any other grimy inner city fortress, with broken glass strewn around an entry system installed by the main entrance. So child killer Alexander Gartshore lived in the tower blocks at 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏's suburb of the city of Leeds. Savile purchased a penthouse flat overlooking Roundhay Park in Leeds during the 1970s and resided there until his death in 2011. The distance between paedophile child killer Alexander Gartshore and Jimmy Savile was 3.1 miles, an 18-minute drive. They both lived in the same area at the same time. According to Find a Grave, Alexander Gartshore also lived in Winmore in Leeds, West Yorkshire, around 2006 when he died. Winmore is 4.3 miles away from Jimmy Savile's home, the Roundhay Park, which is a 14-minute drive. Author Howard Sound said West used to boast of having a Scottish connection, thought to be a reference to friends from Scotland who could help him dispose of bodies. Jimmy Savile had links to multiple child killers, including Sidney Cook and the Dirty Dozen, Moira Hindley and Ian Brady, as well as many, many more.